There's a specific kind of silence that lives in a garage. Not the silence of emptiness, not the silence of a room nobody uses. It's a working silence, the kind that hums underneath the sound of a ratchet turning, underneath the low groan of a floor jack being pumped, underneath the faint static of an old radio that hasn't been replaced, because replacing it would break something that doesn't need to be named. You know that silence. You've stood inside it. Maybe tonight. Maybe 100 times before tonight. And if someone asked you why you were out there at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday, you probably said something like, just checking something, or wanted to get ahead of that noise in the engine. And both of those things were true, technically. But they were also, in the most clinical sense of the word, a translation. Because what you actually said, what you actually meant, didn't have words. It never does for men like you. Part 1. The incommunicability. There is a category of emotional experience that language was simply never built to carry. Researchers at the University of Arizona studied the average number of words spoken per day by men versus women and found something that everyone expected. Men speak fewer words. But what the follow-up work revealed was more interesting and far more painful. It's not that men have less to say. It's that a significant portion of what men feel never achieves verbal form at all. It bypasses language entirely. It goes somewhere else. It goes into the hands. Psychologist John Gottman, who spent decades studying emotional regulation in men, identified something he called physiological flooding. The moment a man's nervous system becomes so overwhelmed by emotional input that the brain essentially reroutes. Higher cognitive function narrows, words become inaccessible, and the body starts looking almost desperately for something physical to do. Most of modern society interprets this as avoidance, as emotional immaturity, as the classic male failure to open up. They are wrong. What they're watching, what they're misreading as retreat, is actually one of the most sophisticated emotional processing systems the human brain ever developed. It's called behavioral displacement, and it is not a malfunction, it is an architecture, a very old, very deliberate architecture that your nervous system built because it understood something your critics never have. Some feelings are too large for a sentence. Part 2. The mechanical translator. Let me describe something to you. A man comes home after a day that didn't go the way it was supposed to. Maybe it was work. Maybe it was a conversation with his wife that ended before it should have. Maybe it was his kid looking at him in a way he couldn't interpret and couldn't ask about. Maybe it was just the cumulative weight of a week that kept demanding more than he had to give. He doesn't say any of this. He changes his shirt. He walks through the house with the kind of quiet efficiency that looks, from the outside, like contentment. He gets to the garage. He pulls the door down behind him. And then he opens the hood of something. It doesn't even matter what it is. Could be a car he's been slowly restoring for 3 years. Could be a lawn mower that technically runs fine. Could be a drill with a battery that was sluggish last weekend, maybe, he's not sure. The object is almost beside the point. What matters is that something physical, something with mass and resistance and rules, is now directly under his hands. And inside that interaction, something extraordinary begins to happen. His breathing slows. His cortisol drops measurably. This is documented. Physical engagement with mechanical tasks activates the parasympathetic nervous system within minutes. His prefrontal cortex, which was flooded and partially offline, begins to re-engage. And the emotion that had no sentence, no word, no door, it starts to move. It moves through his forearms and into the socket wrench and into the bolt that doesn't want to turn. The bolt is not the problem. The bolt is the proxy for the problem. And when it finally breaks loose, when it finally submits, something in his chest loosens with it. Not completely, not permanently, but enough to breathe again. Enough to go back inside and sit at the dinner table and be present for his family in a way that he genuinely, structurally, could not have been 45 minutes ago. This is not avoidance. This is medicine. Part 3. The pain of being misunderstood. But here's the part nobody talks about. His wife watches him disappear into the garage again and feels something that she also cannot fully articulate. Something between loneliness and frustration and a worry she can't quite place. She doesn't know she's watching emotional therapy. She sees a man who, when things get hard, goes and talks to a carburetor instead of to her. His kids grow up watching dad spend hours in the garage on weekends. They might feel at different points in their lives like that space mattered more than they did. Like the machines got the version of him that laughed and focused and felt satisfied. And he has no idea. He has no idea because he was never given the vocabulary to explain that the garage is where he goes to become capable of love again. That the hour he spends out there is not an hour stolen from his family. It is an hour spent rebuilding himself into something his family can use. That the man who comes back through that door is more patient, more present, more genuinely there than the man who would have stayed inside and slowly calcified under the weight of everything he couldn't say. He does not know how to explain that the garage is his way of saying, "I want to be better for you." So he says nothing. And the distance grows, not because he doesn't love them, but because the very mechanism he uses to protect them is invisible to everyone watching. Part 4. The neuroscience of having to fix things. There is a structure in your brain called the dorsal striatum. It is ancient, far older than language, far older than social complexity, far older than any modern conception of what a man is supposed to be. It is the part of your brain that lights up, literally lights up, in imaging studies when you solve a physical problem with your hands. When you diagnose something, when you take a thing that was broken and make it whole, the neurochemical response is not subtle. It involves a cascade of dopamine and norepinephrine that is, in clinical terms, nearly identical to the neurochemical profile of feeling safe. Think about that for a moment. Fixing something makes your brain feel safe, not metaphorically, biochemically. The act of restoring order to a physical object triggers the same ancient safety signal that your ancestors felt when they secured the shelter, when they ensured the fire would last the night, when they did the one thing that stood between their family and chaos. You are not fixing a car. You are, on a level beneath conscious thought, telling your nervous system, I am still capable. I can still hold things together. The world is broken, but I can reach into it with my hands and make at least this one piece of it work again. And that message, that cellular level reassurance, is what lets you sleep, what lets you wake up tomorrow, what lets you stay. Part 5. The redemption of the silent protector. I want you to hear something clearly. The people who don't understand your garage, who roll their eyes at the time you spend there, who wish you were more comfortable sitting in circles talking about your feelings. They are not wrong to want connection. They are not wrong to want more of you. But they are wrong about where you are when you're out there. They think you're escaping. You're not escaping. You're returning. You are performing the oldest, most quietly heroic act that a man in a complex world can perform. You are taking the chaos that lives inside you, the fear that you're not enough, the grief that has no funeral, the love that has no speech, and you are converting it through your hands, through your tools, through the sacred and unglamorous ritual of fixing what is broken into the ability to show up for them again and again and again. The garage is not a place you go to be alone. It is the place you go so that you can remember how to not be. There's a man somewhere tonight, maybe you, maybe someone you know, standing under a fluorescent light, holding a wrench, staring at something that doesn't need to be fixed by morning. He's not lost. He's doing the only kind of therapy that ever made sense to him. And somewhere inside the house behind him, without knowing why, the people he loves most are a little bit safer because he's out there. They just don't know it yet. Maybe now they will.